Hi, so today I'm going to be talking to you about aliens. Well, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI. So before we go into this, I just wanted to make sure I'm going to talk about aliens as a matter of fact, because according to the scientific probability, they are. We are one of, recent estimates say, around 1 trillion planets in our galaxy. That's based on all star systems, all stars having planets, all solar systems. And so that's just one of billions of observable galaxies. And so even with all of the factors that are put in the form of the Drake equation made by Frank Drake, an astronomer, in 1961, the best estimate is that there are still thousands of intelligent civilizations in our galaxy alone, which would put the nearest at about 150 light years away. So I'm definitely going to talk about aliens as a matter of fact. I'm going to talk about advanced aliens as a matter of fact. So that's just before we go into this. Obviously, there are very conflicting views on SETI, as there are on most topics. I'm going to start with the negatives and work towards the positives. So one of the main negatives is the religious aspect of it, and the source I found for this was David Laughlin, who says that the Bible says there aren't any aliens, so why should we keep looking? The Bible states clearly that aliens, well, it never mentions aliens, but it also says that God created man in his image. And so he says that why should we keep looking for aliens when the Bible says there aren't any? I disagree with this because I'm trying to follow the scientific aspect of it, not the religious one. And so going off of a historical document is not what I'm looking for as evidence. There are other negative views, though. One of these is expressed by Stephen Hawking. I don't know if you know of him. He says that all aliens that would be able to contact us would be so extraordinarily advanced that they've already decimated their own homeworld and killed all their resources. So this makes him wary of accepting advanced life that's going to contact us. He thinks that advanced life is going to have already killed itself and died out. But he says if advanced life contacts us, it will be in the form of raiders and people looking for energy and power and resources and places to colonize and grow, rather than looking to communicate peacefully and grow together. They just want to expand their own empire. And so he says that these aliens aren't things that we should be looking for. These are things that we should be looking out for, so to speak. He says that these aliens are going to not need to be contacted. They're going to find us. And if they don't find us, then we're safe. So this is also a very negative perspective, and one that I try to stay away from, because it just seems to me like that's such a pessimistic view. Because granted, aliens might have destroyed their homeworld, but they also probably would have found other homeworlds within their star systems, especially considering that every star has numerous planets, which is something I mentioned earlier. So this to me does not seem like something that's very likely. There's another person, though, his name is Nick Bostrom, and he got a philosophical aspect on my question. He says that aliens are probably a bad sign for human beings, not because they're going to take us over, but because they probably won't be there anymore. He agrees with Hawking that there will be destruction of the home world, and the species will probably have killed itself out. And so he thinks that any alien life that we find will already be dead. And this wouldn't be so bad, right? I mean, dead things can't hurt us. But he says that there is such a thing called a great filter on life in general. And we don't know if the great filter is in the past or the future. So the great filter is an event that takes place throughout all civilizations. Every civilization goes through a great filter. And he says that the great filter could either be behind us, somewhere we've already been recently, like way behind us recently, or it could be in the future, either recently or distant. And so he says the great filter that would be way behind us is just the evolution of life in general. So that would be, microbes and RNA and things like that. And that's something that life on Earth has already moved past. He's saying that another great filter could be evolved intelligence, which is relatively recently, but still a while ago for us. And we also got past that. And he's saying that another great filter could be technological advancement, such that we could send signals out to the stars, which is something that we'd be looking for if we were trying to get alien life. And so that great filter we've also already passed. And so that we're good on 3 of the 4. But the 4th great filter is the big problem. The big great filter is what if there's a point at which you either develop the ability to travel in space fast enough to colonize and spread your race among the stars, or your race perishes on your home world because you've consumed all the resources and destroyed it. That great filter is something that he worries about. And he's saying the more advanced life we find, so if we find, say, microbes on Mars in the water that's there, or on Europa, or any of the Enceladus, any of these planets that could be harboring life, he's saying that finding life there is making the great filter more and more likely to be in our future. Because if these planets got past the very far back ones, or even the more recently far back ones, so the more advanced the life gets, the worse our chances are of being able to have already gotten past the great filter and being able to just move on into our future. This viewpoint is sobering to think about, but I don't think it should really have an effect on whether or not we search, which is, if you remember my whole question. So this viewpoint, while true, I don't see anything wrong with it logically. Searching could only answer the questions that this viewpoint presents. There's nothing harmful about searching. But at the same time, if we find living aliens, or even better, if we find no aliens, well, for this viewpoint anyway, then the horrible things that it presents aren't true, and we aren't necessarily doomed to destroy ourselves, which is something that I think all of us like to hear. So, on to the positive side of this issue. Kathy Jordan, an astronomer at Cornell, also has an opinion on this, and I tend to agree with her opinion more than the negative aspects of this. Her opinion is that any possible downsides of SETI, which include money, which is less than one military helicopter per year, according to Jordan, are totally and completely outweighed by the possible benefits of being able to interact with aliens and extraterrestrial intelligence, because they might know things that we don't know. They might be asking the same questions we are, and they might have found answers. And so that is a very big aspect of why I think we should continue SETI. And I think that it's a very positive reason for continuing SETI. Another positive source is Ian O'Neill from Discovery. And he says that the technological advances that we have made with SETI, which are numerous and vast, and I don't even go into that here, I don't have time, also are very outweighing to the very small cost of continuing it. But he also thinks that philosophically, understanding our role in the universe as not the only species out there is very important and is key to the survival of the human race. And this I agree with, especially, I take it even further, and I say that humans are explorers by nature. This has been proven throughout our history. And so, to not explore the stars when they're just sitting there waiting to be explored seems to me to be denying our very nature. And so not only understanding our place in the universe, but also fulfilling what we were meant to do. So finally, Seth Shostak, who talked at TED, says that not only the technological advances and the philosophical advances and being able to short-circuit history, but also SETI is useful as the ability to inspire the next generation to get involved with science. And that's also very true. And he says that the peak ages to do this are around 8 to 11. And he says that everyone can understand SETI, because all we're doing is pointing these giant, radio arrays at the sky, and we're saying we're going to eavesdrop on aliens. And everyone can get that, especially a kid from age 8 to 11. And he says that that's the prime age to get kids interested in science. And he sees that the next generation is growing up with this distrust of scientists, and that has to stop, because that is a very negative thing to have in a society. And this source is what I agree with the most. I think that the next generation, I can see it, are all coming up with not very much interest in science and more of an interest in, being popular. And this is bad. This is very, very bad. And I think anything that we can do to stop that is beneficial. And so, for all the reasons I've listed, I combine all three of the last positive sources. I say that technological advances, philosophically understanding why we need to be here, and also answering our own nature of being explorers, but also helping the kids understand science and get involved with science. And that's, I think, the best of all of my reasons, and that's why I think we should continue SETI. Thank you for listening.